Welcome back, or if this is your first meeting, welcome. Thank you for coming out. This is our second GBM of the semester. I just found out that these slides have some animations that I didn't put in there, so bear with me. We'll see what slides they did. So, all right. First things first, we're coming out with our merch. We have some different options for you, and we do want your input. So go ahead and scan that QR code and give us your input by Friday the 13th, end of day. If you don't get this, I can pull it up later. It's also in the newsletter. Tell your friends that are members. Go find it in the newsletter and fill it out. Also make a GroupMe announcement. Yeah, so definitely take a look at that.
Hi everyone, so next Monday on February 16th, we're gonna host a LinkedIn workshop. So this is gonna be a collaboration with me, Amanda, and JC. So we're gonna go over kind of all the ins and outs of LinkedIn. So feel free to it's gonna be on Zoom. So have your laptop ready and your LinkedIn open, and we'll be doing that. The RSVP will be found in the newsletter as well, and then the Zoom link will be sent about an hour before the actual workshop to just get everyone who's last minute RSVPing in, and we'll send it out then. So look out for that, and that'll be worth 1 point. Okay, and then we're having another DBT Zoom information session. This is gonna be from the West Coast University. They're located kind of in the LA area. This will be on March 4th at 6 p.m. And again, the RSVP will be in the newsletter. So this will be a great way to find out about another DPT school in California and have all that information in.
Yeah, just to emphasize, that point is gonna be separate. So if you go to that, it's worth 1 point, and then if you go to a different DPT info session on your own time, that's half a point. So yeah, 1 point. All right, we have a Shea Smart fundraiser coming up on 2/18. So you can go to any of the locations on campus as long as they're open, mention FPTO. Unfortunately, this won't work on meal plan, so if you're a freshman or maybe a sophomore in here, it won't work for meal plan, unfortunately. It'll be worth 1 point. To get your point, take a picture of your receipt and send it into the secretaries. If you have any questions about submitting points for this fundraiser, please talk to the secretaries on either side of the room. But yeah, any of the locations, mention FPTO, tell your friends, can't hurt. Yeah, all right. These animations are making me. Yes, so we have a collab coming up with Appo. I will be presenting at one of their GBMs. It's kind of going to be a split GBM. I'll be talking about PT school admissions with one of their other executive members. Location, I still don't have yet. I just know it'll be in a classroom most likely, and half a point for attending that. Just keep checking the point doc for the location. I'll also send out a reminder in the GroupMe, and that'll have the location hopefully once I get there. All right.
Hey everyone, we're your team captains for Dance Marathon. So I'm Sydney.
I'm Jake.
And we actually, last weekend, we went to a retreat where we got to meet the Rady rock star who is Carson. He had cancer when he was 4, and he's over it. It's been about 6 years now that he's cancer free. So these are just some of the stories that we get to hear at the main event, which is on February 21st. So yeah.
Yeah, so we hit our original goal of $500. We set a new goal of $1,000, and we just wanted to share some info that if everyone who's currently on our team or wants to join our team just raises $8, we'll easily hit our minimum, so just something to look forward to. And as it says up there, every dollar does count. We raised $45,000 last week for our Push for Rady's Week, so that's really good stuff. And like we said, minimum fundraise is $50 to go to main event. It is also worth half a point. And then we also just wanted to share this. It's a breakdown of where the actual money goes. So if you're curious, some of the things that stood out to us was just 50 cents buys one diaper, which over 800,000 are used every year.
So it really shows that every dollar counts. And so we would really love your support in raising money and helping our team. And the main event is February 21st, which is next Saturday, and it's from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. You can go anytime. So yeah, thank you.
All right, and then one more thing for me, as community service coordinator, I really want to tailor events to you guys. One of my goals was to make everything super accessible and have the most people in FPTO go. So you guys could fill out this short form. It lists potential service opportunities, times of day. So there's one part where there's specific events, another part where it's just when you're generally available to volunteer. It helped me out a lot to kind of tailor events to you all and make sure that everyone can get the most they can out of community service and actually come to these events. So if everyone could fill out the form, that would be much appreciated, and hope to get some community service events in the calendar soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. I will talk for a second so you have time to fill that out. If you have any questions about any of the dance marathon stuff, maybe you weren't here last semester, you're a little bit confused, definitely talk to Jake and or Sydney. They can fill you in. And then we'll make sure that this is also put in the group me, on the newsletter, all those good places. But thank you all for your feedback. We're asking for a lot of it today, but you're what makes the club go round. So, all right.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm the VP for FPTO. My job is basically to plan our biggest event of the year, which is Grad Panel. We have 2 parts to Grad Panel. It's a virtual and in-person one. Our virtual one is February 27th, which is a Friday, and then the in-person one is March 6th. And so before we have Grad Panel, we kind of do a workshop to kind of get ourselves situated and get prepared for it. So our next GBM, which is Monday, February 23rd, will be kind of a Grad Panel prep, and I'll be telling you all the details that go into Grad Panel. So I just want everybody to be prepared and to know what the event is all about. So I'll be talking about that next time. Thank you guys.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't been in the club before, Grad Panel is a huge deal, and it's a really great way to make connections with admission directors or even program directors, depending on who's coming to present. We have a lot of different schools coming this year.
Yeah, one more thing.
Okay.
These are QR codes to RSVP, and in order to go to the event, we need to RSVP so that we know how many people are coming. And for the virtual one, you'll get a link sent, and then for in-person, we'll have a check-in stand, and so your name will just have to be on there.
Yeah, perfect. But again, really, really great opportunity to make these connections. It's a really small setting, and it's very memorable for a lot of these people that come. I see members that come, year after year, and they've had one-on-one time with these people, and they will remember their names. So, big opportunity here. Again, these will be on the newsletter, so don't worry if you don't get them right now. We'll make sure those get to you. All right. So some later February point opportunities. We have the Aztec Adapted Sports GBM. They have a guest speaker coming in that was a former Paralympic swimmer who's now a physical therapist, and she'll be talking kind of about her journey and the way that kind of her experiences have shaped the way she treats. So that will be on 2/25. You will get half a point for attending, a super cool opportunity. And then USC, their pre-PT club, shared with us that they were hosting a pre-PT conference. You can look at more about that on our newsletter. I linked everything there, but they have a lot going on there. I think it's $10 or $15 a ticket. And I know someone was interested in going and might have wanted to set up a carpool, but just another opportunity for you to get out there. That's another half point, and again, it is separate from going to a DPT info session, so it's more ways your points can stack. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get into the main thing for today, the GRE. So for those of you that don't know, the GRE stands for the Graduate Records Examination, and it's a standardized test required by some DPT programs, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it is a 2-hour computerized exam, so not as intense as it used to be. You might have heard some of your maybe older siblings or much older friends talking about how gruesome it was for 4 hours. They very recently made it a smaller exam. So I've linked over there the PTCast directory, which kind of you can filter by whether or not a school requires the GRE. Just something you can keep in your back pocket, but I did want to give some examples. These are some common ones that a lot of our FPTO members have mentioned in their surveys. So you can see there's a good amount that require it and a good amount that don't. So most likely you will end up taking this test if you're applying to any of the schools on this list or others that do require the GRE. A good way to put it is that it's kind of like the SAT. If you remember going into college, like San Diego State didn't require it, but other schools did, except we're not in COVID times anymore, so the restrictions are kind of all over the place as to who's keeping it and who's not. All right. Sorry about these animations. So there are 3 sections to the GRE. The first one is the analytical section, and this is kind of known as, more colloquially, an essay. Then there is a verbal section that has 2 adaptive sections and 2 sections of quantitative, think like math. All right, so we're just gonna jump into these sections here. The first one is that analytical section, and it is asking you to analyze an issue. So you'll need to take a stance on a provided claim and explain your reasoning. The big point here is that you're explaining your reasoning. So I'll get into that in a second, but basically this section is graded from 0 to 6 in increments of 0.5. So you can get anywhere from 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, etc., all the way up to 6. It's graded by both a human and an e-reader. So this is kind of interesting because they're starting to use some kind of like AI type things to get a sense of your questions. So for those of you that use a test prep where your answers are graded by AI, this isn't actually too far-fetched because they use it. And then there's a 30-minute time limit on this. So something to think about when you're thinking about how to structure your essay there. But it is typed. It's not like, for those of you who took like AP Lang and had to like handwrite so many essays, it's typed, so it's a little bit easier. And the big thing here is that there's no wrong or right answer to the questions they're asking. They pose them on purpose that way. They just want to see your ability to lay out reasoning. That is the big thing behind all of this. Critical thinking and analytical skills, the way you can show your reasoning. All right, so I'm just going to bring up a sample question here. This is directly from the ETS website, the people who make the GRE. And the question is, the best way for a society to prepare its young people for leadership in government, industry, or other fields is by instilling in them a sense of cooperation, not competition. And the directions that you're going to get with pretty much every question, it'll be maybe slightly different, but it'll say write a response in which you discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with the claim. In developing and supporting your position, be sure to address the most compelling reasons or examples that could be used to challenge your position. So for those of you that have already taken your like lower division writing classes, you might be pretty familiar with this. They want to know why your reasoning stands and also why someone else's reasoning doesn't stand. So because I'm going to be yapping a lot today, find someone next to you, maybe a few people, introduce yourself, quickly discuss with them, how do you think you would tackle this? Go. Chances are you probably had a different opinion than the person sitting next to you, right? So that's kind of the point of these questions, is that everyone's going to have a unique take and there's no right or wrong answer. The way to structure this essay, everyone goes about it a different way, but there's no minimum or maximum. You can kind of do whatever you want, but remember you have 30 minutes. I think when I did it, I went roughly that 5-paragraph essay format, but it doesn't need to be anything crazy fancy. Again, they really want to just see your reasoning. All right. So that's the first section. You're always going to get that first, and you're always going to start with the essay when you take the GRE. But what comes next is actually random. So basically, you could get either verbal or quant next. So I'm going to call that A1. You're going to get verbal or quant. Let's say you get verbal first, then you will get quant, or vice versa. That'll be B1. Then you will go back to A2, so you'll get another one of that first one you got, call it verbal, and then B2 the second one, so a second quant. So this can be, again, it's gonna vary based on when you take it, it's just super random. So I'm just gonna start talking about verbal. We're gonna pretend we got that first. This is kind of like your literature, language, text section, and these are just the type of questions that you're going to encounter, very simplified. So the first one is everyone's SAT favorite, reading comprehension. Yay. So you'll have a variety of questions within this, multiple choice or even select in passage. And the passages range in size. You generally have a mix of size passages. They could be anywhere from 1 to 2 paragraphs to up to a page. So it really depends, but you'll get a good variety throughout your GRE. The next type of question is text completion. So you'll have a number of sentences and a number of blanks, and you just have to pick words to fill in those blanks. So again, this is where vocab comes in handy. So love that. If you are not so strong in your vocab, unfortunately, GRE is gonna challenge a bit on this. And then the last one is sentence equivalence. This one is a little bit confusing, but basically they're gonna give you one sentence with a blank and it's gonna have 6 answer choices. And you need to find 2 words that are both synonymous and fitting to the sentence. And they'll try to trick you by giving you words that are synonymous but don't fit into the sentence. So again, vocab is really emphasized in this section in terms of the more language arts stuff, and then literature, that reading comprehension. One of the things that many test prep sites talk about in terms of preparing for like this section in general actually is finding what they call GRE level reading materials. So they're telling you to go out and read like newspapers and fancy scientific articles. That's one way to go about it. I personally did not do that, but there are people that do. So just something to keep in mind as you're nearing the GRE, something to consider. So the way that this is formatted, that first section is going to be 18 minutes and you'll have 12 questions. And then that second section you get will be 23 minutes and 15 questions. And no matter how the sections adapt, they will always be like that. I'll talk about what adaptive is in a second. I think I missed that. But they are scored from 130 to 170, so a bit of a weird score range. Thank you for the pencil. So this is a little bit about adaptability, and this is the way that you are going to get scored. So there are 3 levels to the verbal and the quant, an easy, a medium, and a hard. They're gonna start you at that medium level. That's gonna be your first section. And depending on how many questions you get right or wrong, your next section is going to adapt. So you could be bumped to easy, you could stay at medium, or you could go up to a hard. You might not be able to tell this on your exam. They don't tell you what section you got moved to, but when you're taking the exam, sometimes you have a sense. But Magoosh here does a really good job breaking it down based on how many questions you get right or wrong, where you're gonna be bumped, and what your score possibilities are. And again, we'll come back to scoring, so you don't have to worry about these numbers too much. Yeah, but this is kind of the way that it'll move you along. All right, moving on to quant. I know this was my least favorite. If you hate math, welcome to the club. These are the things you have to remember from high school, unfortunately. You have arithmetic, stats, so like data and probability, geometry, and algebra. So all these topics are unfortunately gonna come back to haunt you. The question types for the quant section, the first one is comparison. So it'll give you a quantity A and a quantity B, and the answer choices are gonna be quantity A is greater, quantity B is greater, they're the same, or you can't tell based on the information given. So this one can be a little tricky, and they're not obviously gonna be as simple as 2 numbers. Plain old multiple choice. They might have select one or select one or more answer choices, not so fun. Numeric entry, basically free response. So there's no answer choices, you're just gonna have to input. And then data interpretation, interpret or analyze a given data set. So tables, graphs, charts, all of that could be in store for you. So the way that this is formatted, section 1 is 21 minutes with 12 questions, and then section 2 is 26 minutes with 15 questions. This goes on the same scoring range as verbal, so it can be anywhere from 130 to 170, and it is also adaptive. So the way this adapts, just a little bit different than verbal, but same overall message. You start at medium, you could get up to easy easy, medium, or hard, and then those are the score ranges that you could potentially get. Alright, I know that was a lot of information, but I promise you, wherever you start working on your test prep, we'll explain this a little bit better and a little bit more in depth than I ever could. So take a deep breath, we'll get through this. So let's talk about scores. Alright, so these are the scoring recommendations that as a club we generally recommend as minimums. That would be 4.0 on analytical writing, and a 150 on verbal, and a 150 on quant. And this is a recommendation and a minimum, and I want you to take this very lightly. This is what we came to because it's a safe bet for most schools. It's what I saw most schools putting out. This would generally get you in a safe place. But obviously check the requirements. Every school is going to be different. Not everyone gets these scores, and many people don't meet the suggested minimum for their programs and even still get in. So take this very much with a grain of salt. You might not even get it on your first try, you might not get it ever, and that's okay, because everyone's at a different spot, and it's really just like if you took the SAT, it's not a reflection of you as a person. So just, again, keep that with a grain of salt. I want to emphasize that the entire time. It's okay and normal. These scores are just suggestions. Something else on scoring is that every score also correlates to a percentile. This gets really confusing, and quite honestly, Magoosh has a really good article here on how that works. They're going to explain it better than I ever could, and I don't think you want to hear me talking anymore. So I will point you to that resource if you're worried about percentiles. From what I remember off the top of my head, for example, Sacramento State had minimum recommendations that were equivalent to percentiles and not numeric score values. So just something to think about. Sending scores. This is a big part of the process, and I know I didn't know what this really was going in, and it made things stressful. So the verbal quant scores are given instantly after you take the exam. So once the exam is done, they call it unofficial scores, but it's pretty much official because those are auto-graded. They don't have to go through a human and e-reader. You'll get those scores back right away. So the analytical scores, it took most of me and my friends about 10 days to get those back. I think they say up to 2 weeks. So the day of the test, once you're done and you get your scores pop up, you will be given the option to use 3 free sends. This is really, really good if you know where you're applying, because any additional send that you don't do on test day is $35 each, and it definitely adds up because registering for the test is already at least $200 from what I remember. So good way to save money. It will ask you about a code, and most schools will list a code. There's no need to memorize that code. You can't bring the codes in with you anyways, but there's a way to search on the computer. You can search for the name of the school, the department, all of that. But this is what threw me. Some schools require 2 sends. For example, they'll require that you send it to PTCAS and to their enrollment services. So before you take the exam, make sure you check the school's website so that you know and you have a plan. This messed me up big time. I only sent to enrollment services, thought I was fine, didn't realize I had to send to PTCAS as well. So just make sure you have that in mind before you go in to the GRE if you plan on using those 3 free sends. Okay, so we're going to talk about some test prep options. So the first one I want to bring up is called Magoosh. It is roughly $149 to $179 depending on which plan you pick. I highly recommend waiting for a sale and then pausing it. So basically, I think right now, up until today, they have a 30% off sale. So I recommend snagging it when they have a sale, and then you can pause Magoosh at any time. So it is on a time running thing, but if you pause it, you buy it now, you pause it, you can resume it later when you're ready to use it. So something to think about. Look into that sale. They have a few going on throughout the year. What I really liked about Magoosh is that it was personalized to your needs and schedule. So when I used Magoosh, I went in, I told it when I was taking my test, I picked a study plan, a 1-month study plan in my case, and then I took a practice test, and it basically didn't waste any time telling me what I already knew. So it was super adaptable. It laid out plans for every single day. I spent roughly 1 to 3 hours every day studying, so it broke it down into bite-sized pieces. Obviously, it depends on how long you plan on studying for, and we'll talk about that too. This was what was used by most of the FPTO exec, not everyone, but of the seniors in the room that already took most people did use this. So if you have any questions about Magoosh specifically, you can talk to, I'd say, all of the seniors but Amelia, because she's going to share something else.
So I actually use GregMat and books, if I'm being so honest, to study, mainly because it's more budget friendly. And for me, it's like the GRE itself is already like what, $200, and I was not gonna personally like pay for that much, especially because I was just doing like a 2-month study plan. So GregMat is self-paced and it has structured study plans. They have like a 1 month, a 2 month, and then they have something called PrepSwift. So it's $7.99, but with PrepSwift it's $10.99, so I only paid about $20-30 for PrepSwift itself and like the whole thing. They have great like way to study vocab, a great way to do math. They have a lot of videos that show you how to do everything step by step. Personally, it was great because they had a lot of like official old ETS questions, which I'm sure Magoosh had too, but that was what I really liked about it too. I did have to purchase some books because I wanted a little bit more practice. They're not as popular anymore, and you know, it is a lot more practice, which I liked. You had thick little books of, there was analytical, verbal, and then a quant. So a lot of practice questions and all of that, and then more study like strategies and how to tackle all those questions and all those. So if you have any questions about GregMat or using books, come and ask me. I am here to help. Yeah, it's very self-paced, but it was great. It worked for me.
Yeah. So these are kind of the most popular paid test prep options that we found. There are definitely some other ones out there. I just don't have the means to talk about them. But find something that's right for you. And there are some free options. Excuse these animations. So the first one is through ETS, and that is the company that produces the GRE. So they give you practice tests, study strategies, and sample questions all for free. So that's a really great resource if you're kind of, I don't know, maybe more closer to the actual exam, if you're trying to take some full-length practice tests, and definitely start by looking at their study strategies too. That's awesome. Magoosh has an app that's free, and it's full of vocab flashcards. So it's super easy access, you know, if you're on the go, and it's a good supplement to anything you're doing, especially if you feel like vocab isn't as strong for you and you don't want to be doing a bunch of these like reading material things and then like looking up what words mean. Really accessible. YouTube, of course. There's a ton on YouTube that you can find on all of these topics. There's a lot of things you can find on your specific needs, big variety, and you know, it's good to get different perspectives if you're listening to different YouTubers. Maybe one sticks with you better. But maybe you're chowing down on these ETS practice tests, you're really stuck on a problem, you don't get it. You could probably go to YouTube and try to find something that answers your question. And then the other tip that I got from a lot of people was to go to free trials of these test prep sites. So like Magoosh does a 1-week free trial. I think Kaplan does one too. So that's one way to kind of piece together your study plan. Khan Academy is also a free resource. And honestly, if you Google search, you'll find a bunch of free resources. So if you're looking to do this completely free, it's very much possible. You just might have to do a little bit more piecing together. It might not be as specifically tailored to you, but you can do it. All right, so let's talk about the timing of the GRE. So most people choose to take it between their junior and senior year, that's summer. That's not necessarily the best though, I will say, but it is definitely what has been generally popular. The reason I say it's not the best is because there's gonna be a lot of things going on during that time. The PT-CAS application opens mid-June for that cycle year. I'm also referring to people that aren't taking a gap year. But maybe you're trying to get in any last minute observation hours, maybe you're working, PT school is expensive, you want to save up. Trips or vacations or limited family time. And it could also be your last real summer break. A lot of the PT schools start in August or June, in May or June. So you might not get much of a summer after you graduate. So these are all reasons why it might not necessarily be the best. Again, it's common, but it might not be the best choice. I know I personally did this and it was incredibly stressful. You could probably ask anyone else in the room who chose to do that. Yeah, see, Amelia was a little smarter. It was really stressful. So it doesn't mean you have to take it during this time. If you're like, okay, I hear you, I don't want to take it during this time, when should I take it? These are the things I'd recommend considering. So the first thing is that the GRE has a 5-year validity on its scores. So as long as you know whether or not you're planning on taking a gap year, you could take this as early as freshman year, quite honestly. And maybe it's better that way because you're fresher out of high school and you still remember some of those math concepts that you're not going to touch in your undergrad. Just food for thought. Also study time, how long you want to study for. Most people like to take roughly 1 to 3 months to study for the test, although it really varies and there's not a right or wrong answer to this. I know some people that did take 6 months. You know yourself the best. You might want to research it a little bit more, but just keep that in mind. And then making sure it fits into your schedule. Make sure you have time for quality study sessions. This is something I really struggled with. They were not always quality study sessions. I was like half there some of the time. So make sure that when you're studying, you're really studying, because you don't want to have to do too much more of this than you have to, right? So these are some things I would consider, but again, there is no right or wrong time to take it. It's just what's best for you. You don't have to fit in with the common. You can be ahead of your peers and decide to take it earlier, and that might be what's best for you. All right, so it's just some kind of miscellaneous test taking tips. The day before the test, do not cram. You're not going to learn anything new and you're just going to stress yourself out, just like any other exam. Just don't do it, because you never know what's going to show up too. Plan to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. We know this, we're case majors, most of us, we gotta get our good quality sleep. Do something that makes you happy, you don't wanna be stressed. And then research the testing center. This one is big. Make sure you know where to park. A lot of these are in weird suites, so make sure you know where the building entry is. And if there's any special requirements of the testing center, anything they require you to bring, just make sure you're in the know so that there's no surprises day of. The day of your test, give yourself plenty of time to get ready. Again, you don't want to be stressed. Eat before. Trust me, just don't go through this on an empty stomach. You don't need the distraction. Don't chug too much water. There are no breaks in this 2-hour test, so any breaks that you do take will cut into your time, so you don't really want to have to be running out to use the restroom. Arrive early. Again, save you stress. I was actually able to start mine early because I arrived early. They gave me the option. It was kind of nice to get out of there and not have to sit in the waiting room. Wear comfy clothes. No one cares what you look like. Just feel comfortable. And bring your photo ID. They will not let you take it if you don't have that. Super important. So I know I just blasted like a ton of information, and if you've never thought about this before, this can be a lot. So I just want to emphasize, first of all, that no one's prep or journey throughout any of this is going to look the same. We differ as people in so many different things, not only as people, but like even in the way we study and the way we take the test, right? We all have different test taking skills, we all have different schedules, we have different learning styles, stress levels. Sometimes a test center can really affect the way things go. If you're in a really stressful environment in a test center, no bueno. So there's so much more that can affect us, and it's just really important to give yourself grace and not compare yourself. I think it can be really overwhelming with everything going on to compare yourself. Just don't do it, because everyone's going to be in a different boat. Everyone prepped differently. There's so many factors. So just don't make comparisons. And just remember that everything that we've given you today, especially when it comes to scoring those big numbers, they're recommendations, they're not hard requirements. And truly, you will get into PT school, I promise. You will be a PT, and these scores don't define you, truly. And not everyone gets the scores they want first try. You might have to take multiple, you might settle for something else, and that's okay, because we're all just different people and we all have different strengths and things to show for it. So that's my soapbox. At the end of the day, FPTO is here to support you always. Again, I know this is a lot of information, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns further, we're all here to support you. Every senior on the board has taken an exam. So that's it for this GBM. Thanks for bearing with me, and I hope to see you guys in the next